the biggest addiction we see is that to our problems. And then the lie we tell ourselves of, if I was living life the right way, I wouldn't have any problems. And the only people that I know that don't have problems are underground. So it's kind of like, what if we stopped wishing or wanting no problems and learn how to navigate problems and actually look for bigger and bigger and bigger problems to solve that will help the greater good. And then that's where life gets really fun.
Ever feel like you're doing all the right things and still wondering why your body feels off? You eat well, you train hard, your labs say you're fine, but deep down you know something's slipping. You're not alone and you're not crazy. I'm Daniel Rasmussen, founder of Echelon Center for Longevity, and I've spent 2 decades helping high performers like you to reverse aging, reignite vitality, and finally get answers. On Unbreakable Vitality, we go upstream. We talk peptides, stem cells, precision diagnostic testing, reversing the age of your arteries, all the innovative science-based tools to take back your health span so that your next decades are your best yet. Because aging is real, but decline is optional. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is Unbreakable Vitality. I'm Daniel Rasmussen, host. And today we have a guest with us here. His name's Mark, and he's with Pacific Shores. And Mark, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your background, how you got originally, maybe your story of how you got into this expertise and specialty.
Yeah, you got it, man. First of all, thank you for having me on. My name is Mark Manderson. I'm in the mental health and addiction field. We just hit 25 years of doing this. So we've learned through a lot of mistakes over the decades, but we also have been doing quite a few things right in a really, really well way. So I was talking to you before we jumped on here of some of the case studies of following up 20 years, 16 years later, and seeing the results still continue for those doing that. So what got me into this field, my story is a lot different than most people. So I remember one person asked me one time, like, how old were you when you first got introduced to drugs? And I was 8 years old. And so when I say that, people are like, oh my gosh, you started using it when you were 8? I said, no, this is the interesting part. I came home. My aunt had been in and out of rehab. She was addicted to heroin and meth. They call them goofballs. And she had got kicked out of rehab. And it was my mom, my sister, who was 6 at the time, and me. And so I got the fun, like outspoken, loving Aunt Steffi. I had bunk beds in my room. So she got to come stay with us till she landed back on her feet. But my mom had one rule: you can't bring drugs in here. And so back then we were so ignorant. There wasn't as much conversation as there is now about drugs and alcohol and abuse and how to be there, how to love the person unconditionally, but how to set boundaries. And so she stayed with us. And I remember walking in one day and she's lying on the floor. And intuitively I knew something was up. And I don't have many memories other than this around this time, but I remember walking up and there was just a sea of pills. She had prescription medication too. And I just remember feeling the crunch underneath my feet. And I started to shake her. And like as a little kid, you wake up mom, and you can kind of feel when a person's like, oh my gosh, what's going on? And it just felt different. Like, I don't know how to explain it other than something like the oh crap factor in me is kind of like, something's wrong. So I ran and grabbed my mom. My mom came in, fortunately resuscitated her. We later find out that's what an overdose looks like. And then my mom asked her to leave over the next few days because, she could have killed my sister or me by accident of leaving everything out. And then same thing happened a few months later, but there was nobody there. So my aunt was the first to die that I remember, that young, that we knew and cared about and loved. And that was so much fun. And it was because of drugs. So I'm a stuffer. I got really good at stuffing. So all through grade school, junior high school, parents put me in therapy. Little side note, I didn't know you could quit, so I'm still in therapy now. I'm one of those individuals that love learning things to grow myself, but then grow our team and then grow. So I'm always looking to learn. But absolutely, I remember going through that and just learning tools, but not applying them. And I got really good at wearing a mask. And my go-to was like, oh no, I'm good. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I guess you look fine. You sure? I'm like, yeah. So I had this beautiful mask that everybody thought was me until I got out of college, and then just all hell broke loose. I became suicidal. Life got really, really tough, but on the outside, everything looked great. I'm just graduated college. I'm in Orange County. I'm in commercial real estate where everything was just going up in value, but I was miserable inside. And so I had that full breakdown. And that was when I started kind of searching deeper within, because I thought, well, I've done therapy, I've done all these other things, and I'd never taken the war that I found outside and the war in my mind and actually attack. I call it the war within. And so I started to find one of the truths that we see with our clients here is everybody says they want the truth, but as soon as that mirror gets held up, we all defend our lies. And so the first step was allowing that mirror to reveal all the hurt, the pain, the brokenness, whatever you want to call it. And then one by one, starting to challenge and colliding with my stories and my narrative and ultimately my beliefs and identity that really helped me start to see things from a complete different light. And so going from a hurt individual to finding out how to heal, even though I've been in, you can call it the system, like what's supposed to work with different modalities. And I couldn't get it. But as I started kind of self-soothing and finding out how to just be rigorously honest, like 100% truth, everything started to change. And then that was when I started helping a couple other people and they got really good results. And I'm kind of like, okay. And then started a treatment center and kind of went from there. And ultimately enough clients in our center said, man, I wish I had this information years ago. You should write a book. And after the 30, 40, whatever it was, person said that, I finally said, okay, I'll write a book. So I wrote a book and just kind of go from there. So this is my purpose in life of really helping people navigate how to live a complete different life outside of what they think is the problem. We call it the safe problem, the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, whatever it is, and get to the core.
Yeah, addiction can come in so many obvious forms and then a lot of very subtle and nuanced forms as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the biggest addiction we see is that to our problems. And then the lie we tell ourselves of, if I was living life the right way, I wouldn't have any problems. And the only people that I know that don't have problems are underground. So it's kind of like, what if we stopped wishing or wanting no problems and learned how to navigate problems and actually look for bigger and bigger problems to solve that will help the greater good. And then that's where life gets really fun.
100%. Yeah. So in your personal, so you're coming from a place of going through and doing the work and setting an example, becoming that person who just does those things. This is something that I'm intrigued with. Was there a name or a process that you used that helped you get to that? Or did you kind of stumble and come across it on your own, kind of figuring things out? Was there a process that you found? I'm really curious about that.
So, and that's how it started. I got curious. So going back to the days of school, I was the guy that sat, first of all, in the front row. I didn't know I had bad eyesight. It was a college professor that finally brought it up. All my life, I just thought the way the world worked was everything like far away, like were bushes. It was just blurry. And then as you get closer, you can see the individual leaves. And so I would sit in the front row just to be able to see the board because again, that's how, this might show you how slow I am. I just thought that was life. I'm like, oh yeah, everybody has this. I assume everything that happens to me is par for the course and 100% part of everybody's reality. And finally, I had one professor say, I noticed you're squinting and you're sitting front row and you ask a lot of questions. And I never was afraid to ask questions that appeared dumb. Like I would hear the people behind me when I'd raise my hand, ask a question like, oh my gosh, this guy. And I would go to office hours afterwards. Learning was always difficult for me. I finally, like I used to think it was a liability. Like I would really harp on myself of going, man, I have to have things explained to me like at a 4th or 5th grade level. And I feel so dumb. And the irony is when I was in school, that was the narrative I was told. Outside of school, it's the exact opposite. I'm able to take complex things, really have people explain it, to break it down into very simple steps. Where I'm like, okay, that I get. And then all of a sudden I go and I teach it to other people. Like with our doctor, if a client talk about everything, the client leaves kind of like, okay, I know I'm in good hands, but I don't understand that. I'm like, okay, it's kind of like this. When I explain it, like, oh, why did you just say it that way? Yeah, I'm all in. This is great. I'm like, I know. It's just my brain, I have to think at a very lower level. But once I get it, I have it for life. And so that's really what helped of understanding, of seeing what other people were doing, different modalities. And then I would try it verbatim. And I'm like, okay, I like this part, but all these other things don't seem to be working for where I am. I must be really broken. And then I would just keep taking different modalities as I continued learning and getting educated, and then just kind of saw what really worked with this mental health part. And so that's the part is really wanting to help individuals heal, because most clients we work with either have kids or at some point will have kids. And one of the biggest truths is we pass down our pain. And so if we don't learn how to face
100%.
our demons, it's our demons that end up raising our kid. And I remember the first time I heard that, because I have 2 kids, I'm like, man, I want to make sure that I heal as much as possible so I can. And then of course, next round was, I don't want to mess my kids up. Well, we all do. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. So
Yeah.
now I say it somewhat joking, but I'm like, I want to screw my kids up in a new way other than the way my parents screwed me up, because we're all going to be screwing up along the process. But it's having these types of conversations to know that there's no such thing as perfection. We're all on this journey just trying to figure out,
Absolutely.
how do we produce in a way that provides value to the earth and that fills the soul, so I'm continually fulfilled even in the dark times.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. We, in our functional medicine programs that we work with people, we're trying to help people not just make better decisions on their nutrition and their exercise, fitness, but also examining the way that they respond to stress. What do you do? How does it show up in your body? And there's negative stressors coming at us every single day. There's mental, emotional stress, there's toxin stress, there's injuries, physical stressors, and how someone starts to deal with the stress could be self-medicating in a very, any number of ways. It could be avoidance, it could be chocolate, it could be alcohol, it could be, in the worst self-medication way, it could be medications and drugs. We try to inculcate and introduce them to as simple of a process as possible. I don't know if you've ever read Atomic Habits or
Game
heard of
changer.
Atomic Habits, but he's got a 4-step process that helps shift identity and breaks down, it takes away the stigma or this sort of idea of just setting goals and trying to achieve goals and knock them off. Instead, creating a framework for developing new healthy habits and then stacking one. You start really easy, start with one simple habit, say taking these supplements. We'll use a simple example. And then, if you need to take those supplements twice a day to achieve an outcome, you're going to maybe need to remember to take them at that appropriate time. So let's put those supplements by your toothbrush and your toothpaste. Put it out there, number one, so it's obvious. Make it obvious. Second step is to make it attractive, make it easy, make it so that you want to do it, tied to some kind of reward or outcome that they're going to see and feel, a reward mechanism. So make it obvious, make it attractive. And third, stack those habits on things that you're already doing so it doesn't so much throw you through a wrench and trying to take on all of these changes all at once. And then it becomes unsustainable and it goes out the window pretty quick. So, and the fourth step is reward yourself, right? If you've got these things, find ways, even if it's ceremonially, to give yourself that reward, to build up the cycle that becomes a self-fulfilling new identity process. And so we have a very distinct framework that we help people with in using that. Once they've got it, then that's a skill that they've learned that they might not have known before. But the Atomic Habits has been a game changer for us in coaching and identity shifting folks that we work with. So fascinating. I love that, you went through the school of hard knocks and you just figured it all out on your own, basically, and put it together into a system where you're helping people sometimes with these conditions there's so much need in the world right now in Western civilization with addiction and recovery. So tell us a little bit about your book. What's the title? When did you launch that book? And what inspired you to take that step?
So the title of it is The Recovery Way: How to Heal from Any Addiction and Start Enjoying Life Again. And I never wanted to write a book. We would do groups here. So I helped build the business and got people way smarter than me all set up to help our clients. And one day, this is probably 15 years ago, one day our therapist just no-showed, and it was 5 minutes before the group. We didn't have anybody to cover. And so, just wanting to serve the clients, I'm like, all right, I'll just step in. What questions you guys have? And it ended up being amazing because it was this open Q&A, and a lot of times people wouldn't ask questions. It's interesting. It's like when you go to the doctor, like, well, I don't want to be judged by the doctor. It's like, no, they're there to help you, but they're still a part of our brain of self-preservation of like, I don't know if I want to completely open up. And I think because I didn't have any initials behind my name, they just opened up. And so we just went over the information and people started applying the work and got really good results that week. And so requested the next week I do it. And then I still do it. Actually, it's going to be later today, Wednesdays. It's one of my favorite parts of the week where I get to jump in and do the group. And so what happened is as the group continued over years and years, so many people started saying, you should write a book like this. The information is so much different the way that you present it. It's easy to do. Like before, we would make these small things complex, and then we can rationalize why we don't do them because they're so difficult. And by bringing just these small, we call them the daily do's, by doing these small daily do's and not having a checklist, but it becomes, it's not what I do, it's who I am. And as we started doing that, enough people said that. So you talked about habits. Each year, at the end of the year, I'll sit down and I'll go over the year that was, and then I'll start to look at what are some big projects I feel being inspired to do for this next upcoming year. How can we better serve our clients? How can we change their lives even deeper? How can we help their families? And I want to say 4 years ago, maybe, it was to write the book that people kept saying to write. And I'm like, man, I'm not an author. I don't even speak English good. Like, I don't know. But there is this part in my soul that just kept saying, write the book. And so I didn't know how to do it or what to do. And so one of the things I do as part of my morning ritual is I call it communion with my creator. Every single morning, I sit in silence and I just have a conversation. I call it conversation with Christ. And I just chill and ask, direct me, what do you want me to do? And that was where I know it's not me. I got direction and said, wake up an hour early every day for the next 365 days, and we're going to write a book. And I'm like, 365 hours? Yeah, screw that. And it was just trust the process. So I made a commitment, told my wife, woke up early, sat down, and most days it was just that little blinking cursor on a white screen with nothing. And I'm like, I got to write something. So I remember some days, what did I just do? Period. I'm like, okay, I did what I was supposed to do. And other days it would just flow. And after a year of writing, I had 365 hours worth of content that we've been teaching and training. And so that just went into the whole revision process again and again and again until finally I read it. I was proud of it, gave it to friends and family, got the holy crap. And then what I do is I bring things into a small group. I run a small business group, and I brought it in there and got really good feedback. Then I go ahead and basically have a small group here at the center, kind of like pilot, and we pilot different things. So tried that, got really good results. And so now it's part of our whole process. When clients come in, we go chapter by chapter. I created a workbook a few years ago that accompanies it. And so it's kind of like the foundation of all the work we do on top. So as they learn this foundation, the first like week or two they're here, it's a small book. It's only a couple hundred pages. But as they learn that foundation, now we can start building very, very high because the foundation is so strong.
Yeah, the foundation is so critical. Yeah, if you don't have that. And it sounds like your book also gives you that a systemized process way of going through it. When you see someone go through your program, how long does it typically take before they're at a point where they sort of maybe, is there a graduation from it in the process? Is there maintenance? And after they go through that process and now they can look at their other aspects of their health, optimization, enhancing wellness. How do you help people make through that next step? What does that look like for them? I'm so intrigued by what you're doing.
Yeah, well, and that's the goal, right? It's not to just be sober, because using actually got them out of that temporary pain that their life was causing. So we see a lot of people get sober and then unfortunately they're miserable. So the whole goal is, how do we deal with what we call the core lie? So once we address the core lie, we can start addressing that. That was the part that caused the symptomatic behavior of the using, the drinking. And so as we identify the core lie, now we get to do the work. We call it the daily work. And I go in depth in the book. In the center here, we have 30, 60, 90-day plans because it's different for everybody. Like, it would be great if we could say, here's the formula. Everybody do the same formula at the same time. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah,
we work with a lot of veterans.
Yeah,
we work with a lot of veterans. So some have deeply rooted PTSD, where others have abuse from childhood. Other people come to us and go, I had a great childhood. Like, I don't understand why I do this. And we look at the brain chemistry. So it really is individualized. But we do have 30, 60, 90-day programs. And then back in 2019, again, about the beta test, we saw people do so well. We call it the bubble. And when they would return home, that's where they would struggle. Now, those that go through all 90 days typically have a stronger foundation, but we still saw this gap. And so 2019, I thought, what can we do to really help them integrate? Because I'm a firm believer of, they get all the information and they do the healing here, But the work starts once they go home and they're no longer here with all the cheerleaders, the doctors, the therapists, the case managers, where everybody's like, we're in your corner. And so
Absolutely. Yep.
I discovered this thing called Zoom, had no idea what it was. And I thought, okay, what if we set it up where we meet 3 times a week? They can be anywhere in the world and we do real world issues. So problem solution. And it took about 2 or 3 months to learn the framework. So like everything in the book is framework. So I'm a huge believer of if I can create a framework where a person can plug in whatever they want, but as long as they keep the framework, they're able to get the predictable results that we're after. And so it took like 2 to 3 months. We call it the 6P framework, but we figured it out. And I ran it for about 6 months and it was amazing. So when I first did it, the beta style, I had a very high standard. And so I set it where if you miss one meeting without letting us know, I'm kicking you out. And then if you don't do the work, I'm kicking you out. This is not for,
That's
for
great.
people sitting on the sidelines. But what's amazing is it took a lot of my time. And after 6 months, I said, well, let's just do a check-in. How many of you guys have more than 6 months sober? And every single person raised their hand. I went, wow, this is awesome. So I said, you guys know the framework. You continue to run this. Hey, I have to get back to the business part. It's taken so much, mental capacity of helping create. This is my gift to you guys. And I say it somewhat joking, but like I started getting death threats. They're like, you can't take this away. You need to be here. I look forward to this. This is helping. And I'm going like, guys, it's not me. We created this together.
Right. Yeah.
And so I walked away and then COVID hit in 2020. I'm like, I wonder how they're doing. So I follow up. It'd been over a year. Every single person was still sober and built a life they absolutely loved. Business, like one guy
Amazing. I
was in the
love this.
transportation business, over 100% growth in business because that's a huge part of, in the book, we go over the 5 foundational freedoms and finances is one of the big ones. And then I thought, oh, we'll try to figure this out. But remember how much fear there was around the COVID time and then being in healthcare. So we're like, okay, I got to side table this because we're just trying to keep people alive. Everybody's going to die. We learned that the hard way. But, and then once it kind of blew over, followed up again. And so it was 2021, I think. No, towards the end of 2020. And we're just at the 2-year mark. And I said, let me just follow up again. Every single person, same thing with 100% success rate. So that's
Oh my
where I'm at.
gosh.
So I go,
Okay,
well, first of all, there's no way I can reproduce this. Like, this is not normal. So we can't advertise this. But I'm like, what did it? And they were still communicating. They were still supporting each other, but they were using the 6P framework. And so that was where I said, okay, guys, what if we launch this for our clients that are returning home? And so it was late 2020, early 2021, where we launched it. And that's where we started seeing people thrive because they get everything. They would go home and then they're served the divorce papers. And they go, oh crap, what do I do? And so we were able to help walk through the normal things that come up in life from the wreckage from the past, and then how to build a life you don't ever want to sedate or retire from. And we're still going strong. Even today, we have another session today. We had one Monday. Then you just see these people thriving with this community. So that's one aspect. Another example to kind of answer your question of how we're able to make sure that the work is still being done. Because one of the things we do see is the person will do the work while they're here. They get the results and then they say, well, I've got the results. I'll stop doing the work. And then they wonder why they don't have the results anymore from not doing the work.
Slide back. Yeah.
Yeah. So one of the analogies we use is, all right, imagine you don't show up to work one day and for a full month, you don't work, but you show up on the 31st to your boss saying, hey, it's so good to see you. Please give me my paycheck for the month. Every single person I've asked are like, man, I get laughed out of the office. They'd say you're fired, the stuff. I'm like, well, I don't get it. In the physical world, you seem very clear of if you don't do the work, you don't get the fruit. But in the mental, emotional recovery world, we're able to rationalize, well, I'm feeling okay today, so I'm not going to do the work. And that's where we start seeing that connection of like, oh, so it's not something that we do, it's who we become. And as we instill the work, the worth continues to grow. And it's this beautiful cycle of just continual expansion.
Yeah, that's great. And so can you share, do you have any one of these specific stories that truly, you can share with the audience just to give us a concrete case of someone that you could think about that's gone through this process?
Well, sure. Normally because of HIPAA, we can't share conversations, but one of the things that I love is the podcast. When they come on, they say, I'm going to share my story. So I'm just going to share a story that someone already shared on our podcast. You can check it out. But this gentleman, he came in the day he turned 18. So we're an adult center. So I still remember we had to wait. And I think it was 3 days until his birthday. When he turned 18, he came in, but poor guy was a wreck. Didn't know who he was, had been using, I believe heroin was his drug of choice. but
Okay.
was all over the place. And what was beautiful is this was, I think, last year. He came in 16-year follow-up. He has multiple
Wow.
businesses. He travels the world. He said, I'm the happiest I've ever been. He goes, and the coolest thing is I get to help other people now overcame what I overcame. And so he's this pillar, and a lot of people know him in the community in Southern California because of how beautiful of a soul he is. But I love it. Every once in a while he'll pop up on his Facebook feed and he's like, oh, I'm in Machu Picchu, climbing the ruins. And then another
That's
one, I'm over here.
amazing.
And he's employing people. He's such a stand-up individual. And some of the lessons he shared that he learned while he was here 16 years ago were just so cool. And that's the part where you get to just sit there and go, how cool that I was used for something bigger than myself. We all came
Mhm.
together as a community to help create the foundation that if he chose to do the work, he would build, and he did, and he still does. And the fruit is just beautiful. So that's the first one that comes to my mind.
Oh man, that's so inspiring. And yeah, he's out there passing it forward, sounds like. And there's nothing like having gone through and done the work yourself, not just talking it, but walking it. And there's authority and credibility that comes with that, that no one can fake it. If you're not practicing what we preach and what we do, we live this, it sounds like you do as well. People can tell, and it's not going to come through with authenticity and integrity in that regard. It's going to be a short-lived temporary result that we get.
And that's a lot of the work that we do. So there's 4 different codes I go over in the book, but the first code, it's called the code of collision. And we teach our clients how to collide with their own stories and narratives. I remember the first time I learned this, I thought every feeling or thought I had was absolute truth. I never questioned it. I'm like, well, this must be true. And then I would go do what my brain said to do versus, no, why don't we go ahead and learn how to observe our thoughts and our feelings? And this is one of the core aspects that people are blown away by. So in I think it was 2018, I actually created an app that runs them through a series of questions. I think it's like 20 something questions, but depending on how they answer, it tweaks it a little bit more. But back in 2018, everything was static. So we saw great results as they'd go ahead, and we call it taking the war without, and then actually going through, and I guess what's it called? Thumb wars, and actually going through the text. And then earlier this year, with ChatGPT coming out, I went through some trainings and created a master prompt that now we're able to give to our clients and say, you don't have to use the app anymore because this actually uses different modalities depending on how you answer to help change perspective and make you more aware. And so if you're cool with it, I would be more than happy to share it as a gift with your viewers.
Oh, absolutely. So just to clarify, using ChatGPT as a tool, then you're feeding it content from things that you created so that it's geared toward sort of a query. If someone has a question or wants a quick reference, now they can just use the ChatGPT, I guess, chatbot that you created. Is that what
Yeah,
this?
so what I did is I took the app I created and I figured out how to make it into a master prompt that anybody can plug into their own chat GPT. And what it does is it helps the user go to war with their stories that's currently creating their reality. And it helps challenge things from a different perspective that allows them to observe their feelings because most people live in these cyclical states of emotions. It's why you see, angry people tend to get angry a lot of the time. Confused people get confused, depressed. Like for me, I lived in depression and I wasn't aware why. I'm like, this just must be how I am because it's how I
Mhm.
feel. That was my emotional gravity. I had no idea that I had unconsciously trained this state. And as I started going through these prompts myself on the recovery chat, I started learning how to undo these neural pathways that led to this emotional gravity and slowly come over to a different place where I can observe my emotions and make much healthier and better decisions. And so that's where it took
Okay.
months, but I figured out, I'm like, okay, here's the prompt that works. And same thing, beta tested it with my own group, worked
Mhm.
well, then brought it here with the beta. Now we give it to our clients and say, look, it's not the end all be all, but isn't it amazing? You can use AI technology to actually see things from a different perspective. And we hear that almost every day. A client will say, man, I was so pissed off. And when I did this, I'm seeing it from a complete different place now. It's making sense. I feel so much better. And so if it's okay with you, all
Oh,
your viewers got to
absolutely.
do, just
Yes.
go to, I think, yeah, they put it on there for my name on Instagram. Go to @Pacific Shores Recovery and just go ahead and follow me. And then once you follow, that allows DM access and just DM recovery prompt. And I'll know that means they're coming from you and I will go ahead and give them, it's just a Google document. I'll give them access to it so they can mess around with it. But what it does is it retrains the brain of looking for different pathways of things that they didn't see before. And it really helps change the emotional makeup and state that the individual is in. And again, going back to kind of full circle here, when we tend to feel better and see things from a different perspective and can observe our feelings, we make much better decisions. As we make better decisions, we feel better. And then all of a sudden it's like, wow, life has actually gotten so much better. What changed? It was what we were doing up here.
100%. Yeah. What a powerful tool. I'll be sure to put, because we've got some of these links in the data. So I'll make sure when we go through and edit this episode that we give all those resources, but really appreciate you that offer. I am intrigued. I would like to check it out myself.
Still use mine every day.
Yeah. I mean, it's not easy to, to build what we bring into some of our coaching is emotional intelligence, like not letting your emotions control you, but being in control of your emotions. That doesn't mean becoming a robot. It just means, hey, why am I feeling off? Why am I feeling anxious or depressed? And letting the emotional shift, once they become aware of it, be the trigger to have their awareness be brought up that I've been thinking or framing things in a way that's generating that emotion. So bringing it back to responsibility, number one, is we can't control the thoughts all the time. It's impossible, but we can control the focus of the thoughts. We can focus on this or we can focus on that. And if we focus on, worrying about whatever is going on in the world, the economy, and you get, fixated on that and dwelling on it, pretty soon you're going to be staying up at night, can't go to sleep, and then wake up the next day and you're tired, and then you start worrying again. And then pretty soon it develops into an anxious mood. And then that goes in long enough and the mood becomes a personality almost. It becomes ingrained into a personality. So it's kind of learning how to have that intelligence and how to wind that back. So there's so many amazing tools that we have to use, like yours. You want to make it as easy as possible for them to use it. So it's a quick in the moment. I love this idea. I've often thought about doing something similar with the language models of inputting all of our data, because I get a lot of questions from our patients. Hey, what do you think about this product or this food? Is this allowed? And it's like, boy, we got to, I'm repeating myself a lot. So it'd be nice to have a little tool like that. That's my next project I've got to tackle. We will be sure to.
I can do to help with that, man. Setting up a LLM that is all that, I would love to, because that's something that we've done this year. We're actually AI powered, we call it. AI powered healthcare company now. It was a bit of a learning curve, but once we did, it's the AI first as a co-pilot has really, really helped with trainings, onboarding, like all sorts of stuff, even with our clients. It is so cool to be alive this day and age. I'm like, man, like we have more knowledge at our fingertips to help individuals. But the sad part of that is, and this is a little side note, I started volunteering about a year and a half ago for a crisis suicide center. And we have so many solutions and resources nowadays, but I have never seen the amount of trauma and pain and depression and suicide. It just continues to skyrocket.
Yeah.
And a lot of it, I don't like placing blame, but I will say a lot of it actually is with this little thing we carry in our pockets that have 24/7 to, that actually is conditioning the brain for the constant dopamine hits, and we're in constant states of cortisol, which I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know it's one of the main things you guys do, but it's just like, oh, if people only knew how destructive it was and how it's sabotaging. There's still ways to use it for good, but it's like just from that knowledge and understanding and awareness, we can start to change that. The adrenals start to come back, the oxytocin, the serotonin, like all the feel good stuff where it's like, this is what we were meant to do, not be like this all day.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a subtle, insidious little habit that's for all of us has crept in. I've got a lot of friends who have actually just opted out of social media altogether. And, again, like you said, it can be a tool, but it's a double-edged tool, right? So
it's just like all tools.
Yeah.
If you don't know how to use it, you can harm yourself, but you can use it for good. So that's
right.
That's just one of the things that we're seeing now, especially in late 2025. It's like, man, there's so much good to come out of this. Just got to make sure that we're educating those that are in pain from it of what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. Because that itself,
you're probably connecting that addiction to social media and becoming addicted to the dopamine hits and feeling validation and acknowledgement that they're somehow involved in the world through the social media, while everyone around them, in front of them, in physical, distance, is completely sort of cut off and ignored. Just drawing the awareness of that is half the battle, I think. Just raising awareness that, hey, this might not be like, put down the phone. Let's participate. Let's be in the world right here. Say hi to the person, next to you and strike up a conversation. It's really, I found that's something that even on airplanes, traveling on an airplane these days, everybody's just kind of like, like you said, on their phone. Or I remember, I've had some amazing conversations just on an airplane and made some great contacts that were so serendipitous. Couldn't even have imagined some of the connections that evolved. I met a mentor of mine on an airplane who later had become a mentor of mine, but was in the same field of medicine. So it's those things that you become aware, draw awareness to, that this might be becoming a habit that might not be beneficial to my health. And that's, I think, one of the first things is the step to making movement and improvement is drawing awareness to it. A little bit about your center. You're there in Orange County. Is it
Yep.
Orange County?
Orange County, California.
And so you're an entrepreneur. You started this. Are you the founder of the center?
Yeah, my dad and I helped kind of create everything. It's a whole long story of when it started. So he initially started when I was overseas at school with sober living. And then when I came back, graduated, went through my depression part, I actually came over and then helped build to what it is now. And literally it was just, we kept seeing gaps in care. We'd see people that are struggling. It's like, wait a minute, you're supposed to be further along. Let's figure this out. And so just by going one step up river and then starting something and seeing better results. And then once we're there, we go one step up. So now, all these years later, we do everything from detoxification services, medical detox, residential treatment, where it's 24/7 care with our team, to day treatment and outpatient, to the virtual program. Like, we do everything to meet the person where they are, to make sure that we help them retrain and rewire their brain so they know what is needed to deal with that core lie. Again, we look at the safe problem, the symptoms, and then we get to the core. And this is where we saw so many people were just focusing on the safe problem, the symptomatic behavior. And it's kind of like, well, that's like, I've never met anybody that's like, yeah, I want to drink until I harm myself. Like, it doesn't happen. It's a coping mechanism. So as we learn to deal with really what's driving that, help them heal at that level, then we get to the creative phase, which is my favorite, where like you just see, like I was telling you earlier about the 16-year follow-up, where he's like, well, I want to do this. And now he has multiple businesses and loves his life. I'm like, man,
absolutely.
Imagine going back to the 18-year-old version of you and saying, buddy, stick with it, because here's what's going to happen if you stick with it. As one of the questions we went over, and he's like, man, I had no idea life could get this good. I'm like, I know, I was the exact same way. So going back to visit that version of us quite often and saying, thank you for raising your hand and saying, I don't know what to do, but I know this can't be it, and for staying in the game.
100%. And so what a privilege you have. And I feel the same, of being just a participant in someone making a difference in their life, being of service, helping them to see things and get them sort of from training wheels to riding on their own and taking off and thriving, not just surviving. Man, it's what gets me up in the morning. It really does. I'm similar to you. We've been in practice, founded this practice 15 years ago, May of 2010. And, it's sort of like you blink your eyes and 15 years goes by. And when you can look back on what you've accomplished and built a business, it's not easy being entrepreneurs. There's a lot of hustle to it. It's a lot of stress, but every step along the way is becoming more and more building resilience. I feel like things that have occurred going through, the pandemic and COVID, I feel like every step before then prepared me to be able to deal with that instead of just folding up and calling it quits. It's like nose to the grindstone. We're going to find our way through this and have that determination of survival, and then back to thriving again. And then you go through that and you're like, man, that's all these little things are just no big deal. Like what we went through, as time goes by, there's days when the routine of it can sort of like feel like we're doing the same thing day in, day out. But then you step back and you go, wait a minute, there's nothing else I would rather be doing. Absolutely. 100%. I'm so fortunate and so blessed to be able, like, made all the, long series of decisions that have led to where I'm at. I feel so lucky. And it sounds like you're in that same sense of appreciation and gratitude, being in service and making a difference in people's lives.
Yeah, when you find your purpose and you learn how to align your daily living with that purpose, life just gets so fulfilling. That's the part that really we get to teach our clients. First, it's to get them to a safe place. Like everybody comes in thinking, oh, they're a recovery center. I'm going to get off of my drugs or alcohol. It's kind of like, no, that's actually the easiest part. Now is the fun part where we go deep on. Like I remember my uncle taught me, this was years ago. I remember talking to him and he was just so smart business wise. And he's like, Mark, you've probably heard before, like think outside the box. And I'm like, oh yeah, thank you for that reminder. Like I'm so boxed in my thinking. And he goes, well, are you ready for the next level? Like it's going to blow your mind. I'm like, oh, sure. All right. All right, Uncle Ralph, what's up? He goes, there is no box. And that's where
Nice.
I was like, wait, what? He goes, yes, every self-inflicted incarceration happens up here. He's like, as you
Yeah.
realize through trial and error, there is no box, what would be possible for you, for your family, for your clients? And that, whereas like, oh my gosh, I've been thinking so small as opposed to, well, what if we help people find their purpose once they're sober and then help them become aligned with their purpose, their calling, that every single day, like Groundhog Day, but in the beautiful way. You get to live your perfect day. It doesn't mean everything goes perfectly,
Right.
but you get to
Right.
live your day to experience the emotions you want. Because we go over emotional creation. We get to do all these things and you're aligned. And the coolest thing is like, I know for the longest time in my circle of friends, I was the only one that loved the Mondays. Most everybody, and it seems this way in life, is like, oh, it's almost Friday. And I'm like, I love Mondays. Why? Because I'm alive getting to do what I love every single day. And this is why years ago, this kind of saying came up of, what if we taught our clients how to build a life they love so much they don't ever want to sedate or retire from it? And then now looking at this with longevity game too, it's like, start living the life now that you want for perpetuity. And then when you're ready to change it, it will show. But as we start doing this, life takes on so much deeper meaning.
100%. Yeah. And in terms of longevity, there's a lot of fluff out there. But when it comes down to it at the end of the day, even if it isn't living longer, it's living better. So it's like maximizing every minute that we have and realizing how fast it goes by. And okay, maybe this concept of living longer is this idealistic state of, if you're feeling good, you're living in a way that your body feels good, you're not in chronic pain, you're emotionally, you kind of mastered those basic foundations of emotional intelligence, and you're recognizing, this is the ideal state. You're taking care, thinking upstream about your health. Maybe it moves the needle on your longevity, but you're maximizing those years so that you're living the best that you can with the most impact on your friends, your community, your family, your career, and finding that purpose. Like you said, I think, we were talking a little bit about AI. We got just a few minutes here before we wrap up, but so many people are fearful about AI. This is probably a whole nother conversation, but at some point we can see, okay, it's going to create a lot of opportunity, but in some regard, there's going to be jobs that are going to be not really necessary. And as those people transition to maybe not working and being more of a, there's all kinds of ideas here, but they're going to have to find purpose. If their job gets taken over by AI, they're going to have that idea of finding purpose in their life, not being identified with the job that they were doing so much, but that's where passion comes in, right? Creativity, thinking that they're, outside the box, and even that there is no box. So, man, this was a super fun and interesting, I feel like, high level conversation. And just in the time that we have left, any last comments or thoughts that you'd like to leave with before we end the conversation today?
Got to go over a lot of cool things. I guess my biggest thing is if anybody's in a place right now where either life doesn't seem manageable or they don't feel like they're living their best life, that there is another version. It does take work. And typically habits is what fills in the gap where motivation lacks. But by finding the habits that work for you and doing that daily, it creates a path that you weren't aware of before. And once that pathway opens up, you can go in a complete different direction. But I know what keeps a lot of people stuck is staying in comfort. Here we call it the comfort of chaos. So the family members will ask them, like, I don't understand. Why do you keep doing this? And as we get deeper and deeper, it's the comfort of chaos. It's, well, uncertainty is more scary than the hell that I know. At least I know what to expect in this hell. And so of understanding that, it's that uncertainty that fuels addiction. And so if nothing changes, but knowing, because there's people that have come before us that left these little breadcrumbs that said, here is how I got to a complete different place in life. And I'm not doing anything special or unique, or I'm not brilliant. It's just, here's what works. And I'm following from people that have left the crumbs for me. So there is hope. And if you want to know what that looks like, if you're looking to talk to somebody, I'm still on the one that does our social media probably the majority of the time. So odds are, if you reach out and DM, it will be me. I just want you to know that someone who's been through it and has helped thousands and thousands through it, I'm here for you. Like if you have any questions, just send a DM. There's no reason to stay self-incarcerated.
Yeah. Now, do you work with people virtually? If there's anyone that's like, man, this sounds like something that, I want to check out. What kind of avenues or accessibility do they have to work with you?
So we have our virtual program, and that is case-by-case basis, but that is where we really hone in on recovery and life skills and coping skills and different things. And then about a year or two ago, actually, I created a mindset program that isn't affiliated with Pacific Shores. It's more of just people that will come through the program, or even in my business program will just be like, man, there's so much I can learn about just thinking differently, because once we realize it's our thinking that got us to where we are. So if I change the thinking, I can get somewhere else. So there's so many avenues these days. All someone has to do is just reach out, and we can kind of dig in to see if we can even.
Sure. Yeah. Awesome. And can you just say verbally, give the easiest DM handle, alias? What would that be?
Yeah. Instagram, our handle is at Pacific Shores Recovery. So it's Pacific like the ocean, Shores Recovery. And for those that still like the websites, it's www.pacificshoresrecovery.com.
Awesome. Well, Mark, thank you so much for taking the time to do this today. I really, really appreciate it. And
I'm here.
Yeah. And you're a little further along in this game in terms of building a community and a listening audience. I'm still in the beginning stages, but man, like you said, we were having a little conversation off camera before we got started. Like, making connections like this is one of the special side benefits, I guess, surprises of starting something like a podcast and getting it going and reaching out to people in virtual. And who knows, sometime I traveled to California on occasion. And, that area that you're at, I really like Orange County a lot. So,
yeah, we love it here. My wife and I say, someone asked the other day, well, don't you miss seasons? I'm like, I love seasons. That's why we live in a place that skips all the crappy ones.
Yeah. If we want to go experience a season, let's go for a weekend getaway, right?
Oh, I love it. But yeah, man, this was great. Thank you so much, Danny, for having me on, and appreciate you and what you're doing.
Thank you so much. All right. And with that, everyone, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next week on Unbreakable Vitality. Look forward to our next topic.
If you're feeling like your energy, your edge, or your clarity just isn't what it used to be, you're not alone. But you're also not stuck. Every week on Unbreakable Vitality, we explore real strategies to reverse aging, reclaim vitality, and rewrite what's possible. If today's episode gave you even one insight, pass it on. Then go take the free vascular age quiz at echelon-longevity.com/quiz to see how your body's aging. Subscribe, leave a review, and follow us, because your future isn't on autopilot. You are building it, and you're just getting started.